Welcome back to part 4 of the biggest what ifs in the theme park industry, a series where we look at, well, the biggest what ifs in the theme park industry. If you want your idea considered for the next video, please comment it down below, starting with the words, what if. With that being said, let's get into it. Let's start with Zachary Roush. What if Alton Towers had clearance to build 300-foot tall roller coasters? So, if you don't know, Alton Towers, located in the UK, can't build above the tree line, so they have to be really careful about the height of their roller coasters. That being said, in their 43-year history, Alton Towers has built 18 roller coasters, 9 are currently in operation, and Nemesis is still currently SB&O. But in general, they have a lot of good looking roller coasters, and they mix theming in to cover up the fact that they aren't 300 feet tall. But to answer this question, what if they did have clearance to build 300-foot tall roller coasters? That's really interesting. Alton Towers is already an amazing looking park, and I really hope I can go one day. So if they had the ability to build a Giga Coaster, that could make this park even more extreme and even more noteworthy. But of course, just because a park has the ability to add a certain ride doesn't mean they're going to go ahead and add that ride. For example, Disney could add a Giga Coaster to one of their parks, but they are never going to because they're more family friendly oriented. In the case of Alton Towers, however, this park is not afraid to do thrill rides. I mean, they have the Smiler, which has the most inversions in the world at a ridiculous 14. So clearly, they are okay with having extreme roller coasters. So if Alton Towers had the clearance to do so, I think that there is a possibility that this park could get a Giga Coaster. However, none of the other Merlin parks have gotten one. That doesn't necessarily mean that Alton Towers wouldn't get one just because the other parks haven't gotten one, but it is a factor to note when you're looking at a theme park chain. And I tell you, imagine a scenario where Alton Towers had the Smiler, Nemesis, all their other awesome coasters, and a Giga. Man, it would really become one of my top bucket list parks, even more so than it already is. Time to move on. Coaster Fair. What if California's Great America was sold to SeaWorld or Six Flags? I like this question, and I've actually had some thoughts about this myself, so I'm glad we can finally discuss it. As many of you know, last year, Cedar Fair sold the land that California's Great America sits on to a real estate developer, Prologis. Because this is my home Cedar Fair park and I have a lot of memories here, it is really unfortunate that this is going to be happening. The park could close as late as 2033, if not earlier. We'll see. Because Prologis is a real estate developer and not a theme park operator, it's likely that CGA will no longer operate once Prologis takes over. That being said, the question is asked that if this park was still sold, but it was rather sold to SeaWorld or Six Flags, what would that look like? So let's explore that. Let's talk about SeaWorld first. If SeaWorld bought CGA, I think they would actually do pretty good things with this park. I haven't been shy of being critical. In fact, I've been pretty openly critical about what the SeaWorld chain has been doing and where they seem to be heading as a company. But when it comes to Great America, hey, they could use some coaster investments, especially in the launch coaster department, which SeaWorld has really been investing in lately. CGA would definitely get a slice of the pie, I think, because SeaWorld has been distributing their coaster editions throughout their parks pretty evenly. And if you look at Great America, there's definitely some investments that you could do and that they need. Additionally, SeaWorld as a whole presents their parks very nicely. Even if they don't have theming, they have presentation down for the most part. And Great America in the back half of the park needs a little bit of help in that department, at least from my last visit in 2021. I think SeaWorld could really make the back half of the park a lot nicer because the front half of CGA is really beautiful with all the flowers and that wonderful entrance. It's just the back half that drops off a little bit. If I had to choose between SeaWorld or Six Flags buying this park, I would choose SeaWorld. Now let's talk about Six Flags. What if they had bought CGA? I doubt this was ever in the cards, but it's an interesting rabbit trail, mainly because of the location of Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about a few weeks ago with the Cedar Fair Six Flags merger, and I was wondering how this new chain, is going to handle this situation because of the fact that Great America is going to be closing in a decade, and they already have Discovery Kingdom there, doing pretty well for all accounts. Will Discovery Kingdom get lots of investment or no investment? Will CGA get any investment at all? Those were some of the questions I was asking for the merger conversation, but I think some of it is applicable to the conversation about Six Flags buying the park instead of Prologis. It almost reminds me when Cedar Fair bought Six Flags Worlds of Adventure and then turned it into Geauga Lake and then eventually closed that down. There were questions surrounding that situation if Six Flags bought Geauga Lake just to close it down. and there might be similar questions that would arise if Six Flags had bought CGA. Especially if the investment into CGA declined even more. Would Six Flags eventually close the park like Prologis is going to? Who knows? At the end of the day though, I don't think that decision would have benefited Great America very much, and Discovery Kingdom would benefit more from that deal. But that's just the way I see it. Let me know how you see that scenario in the comment section below. Snow Ghost Films. What if another coaster went above 6G again? So a couple things to talk about here. Number one, there's only been one coaster, at least to my knowledge, that has gone above 6G forces, that being Tower of Terror at Gold Reef City in South Africa. I can't get into all the specifics, but this coaster has an interesting and plagued history. There's a lot of question marks in its past, as to who even built the thing. To my knowledge, this coaster wasn't originally supposed to have 6.3 G forces, it was supposed to have more like 4, and that's what it has now after a modification a few years after the ride opened. I really can't see another coaster being built with that many G-forces because of the problems it caused, but let's say someone did, probably Intamin, build a coaster of those forces. Well, I think it would be absolutely insane, but I can't really see any major effects of it because I don't think even if it was successful, more parks would order a coaster that intense. A lot of guests would probably ride that attraction once and then move on because it's too intense to do more than once and probably too scary for most guests anyways. Because of those factors, I think it wouldn't be a popular coaster model and it would be a one and done. So let's move on to Memes RCT. What if Kentucky Kingdom was sold to Universal Studios instead of Herschend? This is very similar to the Great America question, just with a different park and a different chain involved. Kentucky Kingdom was sold in 2021 to Herschend Entertainment, and so far, to my knowledge, they haven't really put any big investments into Kentucky Kingdom, and we're still waiting to see how they're going to handle it. Herschend's interesting because we know at their best, they can pour in tons of money into a park, and at their worst, they pretty much forget that the park exists. Wild Adventures. But anyways, Universal. Again, like the Six Flags buying Great America thing, I really can't see this as even the slimmest of possibilities. However, let's explore it. So if Universal bought Kentucky Kingdom, I don't think it could be a bad thing. Whether you think Universal's ride lineups are too screen-based, that's up for debate. One thing you can't really debate is how well they operate their parks. They're one of the best theme park operators out there. They dispatch their rides in short order. Their staff members are friendly and their presentation is wonderful. So some of that could be implemented into the operations day-to-day of Kentucky Kingdom. But things like ride lineup, presentation, and themed areas is more interesting. It would take a decade, maybe two, for Universal to get even close to where they would want to take Kentucky Kingdom, because there's no doubt they would want to put in more theming and more themed attractions. We'd probably see some dark ride additions. When you look at Kentucky Kingdom though, it is an amusement park, not a theme park. So if Universal wanted to make it into an immersive place, there would be a lot of changing and a lot of work and a lot of money that they'd have to put into that place. Could they do it? With time, money, and consistent love into the park, I think they really could. Do they want to do it? Well, if they had bought Kentucky Kingdom in 2021 instead of Herschend, then evidently they would have had some sort of interest with the park, so it's possible. I know they're building a family park in Texas, but this could be another park in the Midwest for Universal to have their presence in. Alright, with those 4 questions out of the way, let's go to our last one, and it is from Pope the Meme Dealer. What if CCI never went bankrupt? For those who don't know, Custom Coasters International, often abbreviated as CCI, was a wooden roller coaster manufacturer that was in operation up until 2002, and in the 90s, they were the company to go to if you wanted a good wooden roller coaster. They built a lot of big coasters in their heyday, and they still have an impact on the coaster industry today because former employees from the company went off to form the Gravity Group and GCI respectively. So let's discuss that first. When it comes to GCI, I think they would be just fine because they were actually formed while CCI was still in operation. The Gravity Group is a different story, however, because they were founded after CCI went bankrupt. So because of that, it's very possible that if CCI never filed for bankruptcy, we wouldn't have the Gravity Group. So possibly no Hades 360, no Voyage, no Kentucky Flyer from the previously mentioned Kentucky Kingdom. There's a lot of things that the Gravity Group has done since coming into existence. Assuming CCI hadn't gone bankrupt in 2002, and they had made some innovations along the way, I feel as if they could be a solid manufacturer to this day. Even in 2002, they sold 2 coasters, Lost Coaster Superstition Mountain and New Mexico Rattler. They probably wouldn't be selling as many coasters as they were back in the 90s, but I think they could still be providing quality rides for the theme park industry. So that's going to do it for part 4 of the biggest what ifs in the theme park industry. Again, if you have an idea for a future episode of this series, leave a comment down below starting with the words "what if." And until next video, happy Thanksgiving everyone, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.